let's just say the global supply of, or all real estate added together is $250 trillion. And how much of that, I imagine a great portion of it is store value money. This is investors looking to just store their value, hedge against inflation. They're not living in all this real estate. And so as this money starts to see Bitcoin as a better store of value, you start seeing big chunks of that 250 trillion.
Realize, though, that real estate for many of those investors is not just a store of value. Mm-hmm. It's also a cash flow.
Yep.
Because you're talking about rents.
Yep.
And so as long as there's cash flow that is larger than the maintenance and inflation, then they're going to continue to hold that investment. The question becomes for them whether or not Bitcoin with zero maintenance but no cash flow, is that going to equate to a good enough fiat investment for them? Because they're still looking at fiat.
Yeah.
To be able to make more fiat by just holding Bitcoin as opposed to holding, maintaining, and renting out real estate.
Yeah. So you have, if we just quickly go through the risks of real estate, you've got renters, they can tear up your property. You got Mother Nature constantly tearing up your property. You've got 3-4 taxing authorities, property tax, federal income tax on the rent. You've got insurances. All of these are ripping away at your profits.
And in some states, squatters.
Yeah. You've got ROI. In general, you're looking at a return on investment. And then you've got Bitcoin that just does, you buy and hold. It appreciates in value. Your favorite word, unconfiscatable. Whereas we don't think that's a word.
It's not a word. It's not a word.
Unconfiscatable. But it's versus, can your property be stolen? Is it really even yours? Can you truly even own property? I mean, don't pay your property tax. You see who really owns it.
That's the truth of the matter there.
Yeah.
And actually having sovereign ownership of land is next to impossible. I've heard that it's possible. I haven't dug down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But as far as real estate is concerned, it is still property of the state. Mm-hmm. In the United States, specifically each of the states, not the United States, because we don't pay national property taxes. We pay state or county property taxes. But that land, that domicile can be confiscated from you should you not pay the taxes that have been agreed on through millage proposals by the community in which you live, or the community in which you hold the property.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got liquidity issues. If you want to go sell, you can't just sell a little bit of your house to go to shop at Walmart. The transaction cost, not everybody wants your property. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can sell it globally overnight, on the weekends, at night, to anybody, versus if you have a piece of real estate in a city in Florida, chances are people that only want real estate in Florida are your buyers.
Right. And your sellers, because you have the brokerage market, which has a stranglehold on the commissions for transferring real property.
Yeah. So I really think if you start picking property apart, looking for the natural weaknesses of it, and you're sitting outside of Bitcoin, comparing your strengths and weaknesses to it, to the real estate investor, not someone living in the house as the utility value of it, but to the real estate investor, it's, the blinders start to fall off of the real weaknesses that, and you could ask a real estate investor, what are the troubles and headaches of real estate? And they have no trouble rattling off the top 10 from taxes, renters, property managers, weather, or just competition. Sometimes when you have a glut or access to capital, because you have to fund these real estate transactions. And, at that point you're in business with the banks. So Bitcoin does simplify wealth storage, wealth preservation.
So let me ask this question as we're talking about real estate. Then what is the incentive for even personal home ownership?
This is a question I struggle with personally, because I checked out of home ownership personally. I started renting mainly because I'm a terrible landlord to myself. My wife would ask me to fix stuff, and that's the last thing I wanted to do. I was better at being an entrepreneur, making money the way I make money. And, I was not one of these guys that got excited about fixing up the house and stuff. But now that over the last 9 years I've been renting. I love calling my landlord when something breaks. I'll handle that. Dishwasher, I'll handle it. I'm just literally picking up the phone, calling the landlord. And now that I know that I take all those payments, all that 20% down payments, everything you would have done to facilitate a transaction of home ownership, roll that into Bitcoin. So it's constantly growing. I'm just paying my rent. It's less headache. You can imagine if I had 20 homes to manage, I would get better at acquiring toilets and sinks and showers and having vendors that could really economically fix stuff. But if I've got one house to fix, my own, I'm probably not going to get the best deal on sinks because I'm not buying 40 sinks for this, stable of houses that I'm maintaining.
Oh, there's a whole difference in retail home maintenance versus property management,
Right.
home maintenance, because a couple of years ago, I was in the market for a roof, and I'm thinking to myself, let me get some bids and I can make a decision on my own. And every single salesperson that came into my home required that I make a decision that day in order to get the deal that they were offering.
Mm-hmm.
And I told every single one of them, you show me exactly the best deal that I can still have in 14 days. And you've never seen a more pissed off person. I'm serious. One of them literally stormed out of my house after writing down the deal that I couldn't, not the deal that I could have gotten today, but because he wouldn't let me have that in 14 days.
Right.
Okay. What business person would ever accept that kind of behavior?
They don't.
Or that kind of negotiation in their office. But we're expected to take that in our homes. And now I've digressed a ton. But it goes back to why is personal homeownership something to be valued?
Yeah. The only reason I would consider buying a home is if I really wanted to make it more of a custom home. I wanted to do things that the landlord probably wouldn't let me, or you wanted to invest in things like swimming pools and art and stuff that's very unique that probably has not much of a resale value. And so maybe if you're doing that, but if you're moving into a city, you don't quite know where you want to live, you just rent for a couple of years to figure it out, or you might end up like me that says, I don't care to be my own landlord. I'm a terrible landlord to myself. I'd rather just find a good landlord, a good area of town, and have him take care of the living. And there's so much more that I can do to experience life than just be enslaved to a never-ending home improvement projects.
So now we have a seeming paradox, though. And that paradox is this: if it's not valuable to be a landlord and it's not valuable to be a homeowner, then who are you going to rent from if everybody's as smart as you have become? Because who's going to want to be a landlord in order to rent you that home?
Yeah. I mean, certainly there is economies of scale. Some people like to manage property and have their little 20, 30, 50 homes. I was an master electrician by trade and had a bunch of master electricians that worked for me. And we had a lot of these property managers that were our clients. And they were really good at their job, keeping their places rented. It's kind of a penny market. They're just making a few percent over their management fees and everything. And it's just a profession like anything else. But if you don't want to make the owner and managing of real estate your profession, they're going to wipe the floor with you with people that this is their profession. I don't think you should casually get into real estate investment. This is something that's an expertise that you're going to take decades. It's going to be a craft that you master.
Well, it has as much to do with the community in which the property is as the property itself.
Yeah. And Bitcoin certainly does change this because for many people, home ownership was their biggest asset, their biggest savings account, a big chunk of their retirement portfolio. They could sell their home that now might be worth $1 million, maybe move to Florida, live in an apartment. You can do a reverse home mortgage towards the end of your life. But Bitcoin changes the landscape of all this because you could have just bought Bitcoin and retired off of that.
Okay, just stop, because I lament a little bit about the fact that when I first started with 99 Bitcoins, I was renting a 3-bedroom duplex, and wanted to own a home. And finally we got what ended up being, $10,000 to be able to put in a down payment to have in our account so the bank could see that we had the money.
Yeah.
And then we pulled the trigger on buying a home about 8 years ago. Okay, what was the price of Bitcoin 8 years ago?
Oh, What was it? 15? No, 3. Was it 3?
It was $600.
Oh, well, you know,
And I think about that, and it's now it's in the
10,000. Do you know?
Stop, don't
do you know
don't
that
just stop.
number? I'm
Yes,
gonna
I
do
do.
it.
Yes, I do.
10,000
It's
divided.
it's 16.7 Bitcoin.
So 16.7.
Stop. Don't just.
What is it?
He's gonna do this to me. He's really gonna do this to me.
Times, what are we at? 88?
Yeah.
1.4
Stop.
million.
Yeah, I know. $1.4 million.
$1.5 million.
So I have to put this in the category of, well, here's the thing. You know, we could talk about a 10,000 Bitcoin pizza too.
Yes.
Okay.
You're right.
And we cannot regret those decisions that we made not knowing.
Just don't make them moving forward.